Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fearless Floyd Show. As always, I am your host, Fearless Floyd. I'm very proud tonight to have on my show somebody who I have had the pleasure of speaking with on multiple times, sending clients to him and having them get remedy or relief, whatever that looks like for them. Everybody's been a satisfied customer. If you have any type of financial transaction or anything like that, and we're going to dive into this, we're going to talk about it. If you'd like to get it looked at, now this is not a show like, hey, this is where you can go get your CUSIP and all that. And we definitely discuss that because that's always such a hot topic in this category in my community. So we'll talk about all of that. If you have questions for Joe, please put them over here in the comments. I will save them as we go if we get overwhelmed, and we'll address them. If we go over 2 hours tonight, we go over 2 hours tonight. It is what it is because I feel Joe is an asset to the community. A lot of you have no idea who he is. I actually got invited to a Zoom several days ago. Joe was in there, and it was somebody else that I had been speaking to lately. And I thought I had introduced them, and actually they had found each other somewhere else. And, I talked to so many people, so I didn't even know. But I'm very proud to have him on the show. I should have had him on here a lot sooner, but here he is. He stays under the radar. He's not getting out on Front Street. He does have his own YouTube channel. We'll get into all of that for you. So if you don't know who Joe Esquivel is, let me introduce you to my fellow Texan. Joe, welcome to the show. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. So
Good.
first and foremost, I have to say I love your disclaimers because
Okay.
I used to do the same thing, because everyone takes things out of context. All right. So I love your disclaimers, and everybody, I am not an attorney. First and foremost, I'm a licensed private investigator. I'm licensed through Texas Department of Public Safety, and my specialty happens to be the secondary market. So what I do is we track down debt and we provide you evidence of what we found. Okay, because that first and foremost, that's what everyone wants to know. Joe, can you tell me where is my loan? Where is my payment stream? It doesn't matter what it is, okay? The majority of what we do are mortgages, but we track down cars, we track down credit cards, all right? Debt is debt, and all debt is sold, irregardless of what you think, okay? All debt is sold. Debt is a commodity, people, okay? We work and we live in a fiat-based system, okay? How do you get paid? With a promise to pay. I promise to pay. You get a Federal Reserve note. What's it backed by? A promise by the federal government to pay you. This note is good for all debts, legal and illegal. You know. So what we're blessed with is I've got the resources, and we track down that debt. Okay, and what we do is reverse engineer that debt. Right. I've had people say, "Well, Joe, I want to know where is my original note." I don't know. It really doesn't matter. Right. If you understand what we do and how we do it, all right, then it makes perfect sense. So, for example, if you'd like me to start, I'll start with mortgages, or ask me any questions that you have, Floyd.
Well, I was going to ask you. You just made that statement, chasing down the original note. A lot of people chase that rabbit trail to no end and never actually get it. So
Exactly.
tell us why that's unimportant for what you
Okay.
do, what you provide.
Real important. Okay, so understand. So when we do an investigation, and specifically, let's talk about mortgages. Okay. So when we do a mortgage investigation, the first thing I'm going to ask you is, all right, I want to see a copy of the latest and greatest version of your note. Okay, your promissory note. If you have a HELOC, it's going to be your home equity line of credit agreement and disclosure statement. All right. Now, I know everybody already has a copy. It's sitting in their filing cabinet in the bottom drawer. That's not the copy I want to see. Okay. Yes, we can use that document, but understand. Okay. I want a copy from your loan servicer. Why? Real simple. Okay. Because your loan servicer handles your files. Okay, he gets paid half a basis point, okay, for every payment that you make on your loan. Okay, he isn't responsible for anything that goes on with your loan. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to call up your loan servicer, right? It doesn't matter if it's Freddie Mac, Rushmore, PHH, Dewey, Cheatham House Servicing. It does not matter. Joe, I haven't talked to my loan servicer in 5 years. So what? Now's a good time. It's only going to be a 3 to 7 minute call. You're going to pick up the phone. Hi, this is Joe. I had a copy of my note. I lost it. Can you email or fax me a copy? And they're going to say, well, Joe, why do you want a copy of your note? And you're going to say, for my personal records, of course. Now understand, irregardless of what your note looks like, it doesn't matter if it looks identical to the one that you got in your filing cabinet, or it has stampings on it, it has endorsements, irregardless. All right, you want a copy of that document. Why? Okay, because understand what happens. Okay, you went to closing, right? And when you went to closing, you signed between 80 and 120 documents. Among those documents you signed was a note and a security instrument. This security instrument is either a deed of trust, a mortgage, or a security deed if you're in the state of Georgia. All right. Now, these were the main docs. Now, what happened after closing? Well, shortly after closing, okay, they took your security instrument and they recorded it in public record. Why? Well, understand, what is the purpose of public record? The purpose of public record is to give constructive notice to the world. Hey, world, look, you know, transactions are taking place. Okay. So now understand, when they record, for example, your deed of trust into public record, okay, the purpose of that deed of trust is to act as a security instrument in the event of a default. Okay, so when they file that deed of trust into public record, say Travis County or Tarrant County, it doesn't matter, okay, that deed of trust hypothetically attached itself to the debt evidenced by the note. Now, when that happens, for that moment in time, there is a proper encumbrance, okay? And I say only for that moment in time, okay? Because what you have to understand is that all debt is sold, okay? Whether it's a car, a boat, an RV, a house, okay? Now, for the last 10 years, all right, understand what's been happening, okay? The last 12, 15 years, right? We've been shifting away from RMBSs into RMICs, okay? So RMBSs are residential mortgage-backed securities. RMICs are real estate investment mortgage conduits, right? Very similar, all right? So the entities that used to create all of the RMBSs or SPVs, all right, special purpose vehicles, have gone by the wayside. Bear Stearns is gone. Lehman Brothers is gone, okay? Ally Bank, all of these banks that used to create these entities, these RMBSs and MBSs and ABSs, are no longer creating them. So there is a void. And this void has been filled by the GSEs. GSEs are government-sponsored enterprises such as Fannie Mae, Ginnie Mae, Freddie Mac, Farmer Mac if you have an Aggie loan. Aggie loans are agricultural loans, right, that are low interest loans that you can buy. For example, you can get a loan out here where I live, okay, because there's a lot of livestock and agriculture where I live. So you can get an FDA loan, all right? Now, understand, once you sign these documents, okay, let's talk about the note first, okay? Because everyone says, well, Joe, I don't know if that's a legitimate document, all right? My name was the only one on it. The bank did sign it. Okay, so let's talk about that. So what you signed is called a unilateral adhesion contract. That is a contract written by party A and signed by party B. All right, the very first line of quite a number of these, right? Go to your paragraph, pull up your note, and read it. It says something to this effect of, for a loan I have received, I promise to pay. Now, what's wrong with that? All right, let's talk about this. You're signing something, you said, I have received a loan, I promise to pay. Have is possessory. Okay, that means that you have already gotten this loan. But nothing could be further from the truth, because until you put your name on that document, there is no debt owed. Okay? The minute you sign your name, okay, that promise, I promise to pay, that is what gives value to the instrument, because you are pledging your future earnings, right? A large number of these loans, these mortgage loans, they're 30-year loans. They're amortized at 360 months, okay? When you break that down, let's take a simple, basic $200,000 loan. Okay, over the course of 30 years, you're going to pay back $500,000. So, oh my God, if I was an investor, it would make sense to invest in RMICs. All right, the problem is that those RMICs are not properly backed by mortgages. All right, how do we know that? Well, let's just look at anybody's public record. Okay, it's real simple. All right, you signed a note, you signed a deed of trust, they record your deed of trust. You go on a public record. You've been paying on your loan now, say for 5 years, right? You've made every single payment. You go look in there and you say, hey, Joe, I can see my deed of trust is still recorded with Mickey Mouse. Yep, Mickey Mouse lending still is recorded. But yet, you go to your documents and you look at your documents and you say, hey, wait a minute, you know what? What's this MIN number I see over here? I look at this, my deed of trust got a MIN number, my note has a MIN number. It's an 18-digit unique identifier for the Mortgage Electronic Registration System. You may or may not have it. If you have it, it's real simple. Go to the MERS Servicer ID website. Once you go there, you're going to plug in this 18-digit number. All right, once you plug that in, you're going to click the little button that says, I am not a robot. You're going to put in your social, and you're going to hit enter. And about 80% of the time, you're going to get a hit. It'll say your loan is owned by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac or Government National Mortgage Association. Or it could just say that your servicer has it, all right? But again, this is just a cursory lookup, right? But what does that tell you? You need to understand they sell your debt, all right? All the time. There you go. That's exactly what you do. They sell your debt. So if they sell your debt, what happened to it? What happened to the note? What happened to the deed of trust? Okay? Because if you understand, all right, we have what's called the Uniform Commercial Code. Well, what is the Uniform Commercial Code? The Uniform Commercial Code, right, is a list of statutes and codes that pertain to commercial transactions between states. Okay, so all of the 50 states have their own version of the UCC. Texas, California, New York, right? Now they all may have a little bit of different version, but again, they're very similar to, again, the federal version. Now, when you start looking at the UCC, right, because the UCC put together statutes pertaining to endorsement, negotiation, transfer and delivery, enforcement of a negotiable instrument, right? So, you know, when you start looking at all of these statutes, all right, and then you look at your document and you put things together and you're like, wait a minute, Joe, I just looked on MERS and MERS said that Fannie Mae owns my loan. And Joe, I just got a copy of my note from my loan servicer. There's no endorsements on it. But MERS said that Fannie owned my loan. I'm really confused. And most people would be. Because MERS is telling them that their loan is owned by Fannie Mae. But yet Fannie Mae's not named to their note. They go look in public record. Fannie Mae's not named in public record. Well, the reason that they're not putting Fannie Mae's name out there is understand, it costs money. Okay? Every time a document is filed in public record, it's going to cost from several thousand to several $100s. It just depends. Okay? Now, the only time that they file assignments of deed of trust or assignments of mortgage or assignments of security deed, for the most part, is when something happens. Usually it's when the homeowner goes into default, right? when you quit making your payments for whatever reason, you come down, you have cancer, you lost your job for whatever reason, right? If you're in a deed of trust state, right, you're going to go into default. So that means on day 31, they're going to file an NOD, notice of default and election to sell under a deed of trust. And then they're going to file the same thing at day 60, and you're going to receive it on day 61. And then they're going to file a notice of trustee sale at day 90 and day 91. And in Texas, the second Tuesday of the first Tuesday of the month, they have a sale. And they do not need your note to foreclose because it is an administrative state. So if you're going to fight them, you fight them being current on your mortgage. All right? Because understand, as long as you're current, they can't do anything. They're not going to like what you're saying. You're going to piss off a lot of people, but you're not in default. Okay? When you are in default, all right, they come in and through an administrative process, they foreclose on you, and they foreclose in 90 days, 120 days, you're on the street. And it happens a lot. Now, understand, I can tell you in the last 5 years, I've seen 5 loans, right, 5 notes that were endorsed. Pretty much, and all of these 5 loans were all what's called Aggie loans. They were all with Farmer Mac, right? 3 were in Iowa and 2 were in Idaho, and they were agricultural loans. Now, the interesting thing is this. On the one homeowner that I had in Iowa, he had 5 loans. However, on 2 of these loans, they put paid to the order of Federal Department of Agriculture as trustee. All right? But on his other loans, they did not. So I explained to him, I said, listen, on these loans, you can't do anything. All right? They've already endorsed them proper. All right? They're Aggie loans. They're with Farmer Mac. If I were you, just keep paying your mortgage. Okay? The other loans, if you want to fight, you can fight. They're all with Farmer Mac. The difference is that they had set a precedence by endorsing the notes. All right? So 3 out of these 5 notes were not endorsed. 2 notes were endorsed. So again, we could show precedence. And we did another one in Idaho. And again, it was multiple loans on this farm. And when we looked at one of the loans, and it said, paid to the order of Federal Department of Agriculture as trustee, and we looked, and it's a Farmer Mac loan. We went through the Farmer Mac Investor Online portal, for the data to support it. And in those cases, we tell them, listen, it's not worth the fight. Pick another fight. All right? Now, understand, that does not happen. That is very, very, very rare that you see that. I can tell you in the last 10 years, I think I have seen 2 notes that were endorsed to the Federal National Mortgage Association. And again, it wasn't proper. It is not what you do. It is outside of the norm, right? I have never seen any notes paid to the order of Federal Housing Authority, paid to the order of Government National Mortgage Association. It doesn't work like that. All right? And it's a joke, all right? Because what happens on the notes that they do put a stamp on, understand, it's all about education. All right? And people get freaked out. They'll see a stamping on the note and it says paid to the order of, without recourse. And then there'll be a signature. All right, so let's break that apart. Because, for example, they're going to cite 3205B, and they're going to say it's a blank endorsement, and it may be transferred by possession alone until specially endorsed. They are correct. Okay, but understand what a blank endorsement is. When they cite 3205B, you're going to cite 3205C. Okay, so for example, in the state of Texas, all right, if I cite 3205B, B says if an endorsement is made by the holder of an instrument and it is not a special endorsement, it's a blank endorsement. When endorsed in blank, an instrument becomes payable to bearer and may be negotiated by transfer of possession loan until specially endorsed. And that's what everybody hangs their hat on. However, if you go to subsection C, Subsection C says the holder may convert a blank endorsement that consists only of a signature into a special endorsement by writing above the signature of the endorser words identifying the person to whom the instrument is made payable. So let's talk about that. A blank endorsement consists of your signature alone. So for me, it is Joe Esquivel, and that's my signature. Now, the minute you put pay to the order, of what happened? You've now made this order paper. Okay, and we've got Texas case law that support this. All right. Now, the minute you put the words without recourse, what did you do there? Well, if you Google the words without recourse means without warranty, without representation. So that means they have released rights to the note without naming a payee. And they say, oh, this is okay, we can do this all the time. We possess it. We're the possessor of the note. We're the holder of the note. Understand, it's like dropping a check on the ground and you don't fill out the payee line on your check. Sure, anybody can pick it up, but they have to fill in your payee name in order to acquire rights to the negotiable instrument. Until that name is filled in, no one will acquire rights, and it's that simple. Okay? If you look at the statutes, and I tell everyone, understand how you're articulating it. Okay? Because if we go to 3203, all right, so if I'm going to Texas, all right, so under Texas, it's under VTCA, Business and Commerce 3203, transfer of instrument, rights acquired by transfer. And this is for negotiable instrument, which is in Article 3. So A says an instrument is transferred when it's delivered by a person other than its issuer for the purpose of giving to the person receiving delivery the right to enforce the instrument. So A just defined what is to be done. Now, B, C, and D are going to place restrictions on how it is to be done. B says transfer of an instrument, whether or not the transfer is a negotiation, vests in the transferee any right of the transferor to enforce the instrument, including any right as a holder in due course. But the transferee cannot acquire rights of a holder in due course by a transfer directly or indirectly from a holder in due course if the transferee engaged in fraud or illegality affecting the instrument. So basically, in layman's terms, subsection B says if there's anything illegal or fraudulent that's happened, no rights would have been transferred. Now, when we go to subsection C says unless otherwise agreed. If an instrument is transferred for value and the transferee does not become holder because of lack of endorsement by the transferor, the transferee has a specifically enforceable right to the unqualified endorsement of the transferor. But negotiation of the instrument does not occur until the endorsement is made. So if there is no endorsement, no rights will be transferred. Now, let's go to the main one that we always hang our hat on, and that is subsection D. Subsection D says if a transferor purports to transfer less than the entire instrument, negotiation of the instrument does not occur. The transferee obtains no rights under this chapter, and it's only the rights of a partial assignee. And I know you're saying, Joe, what the hell is a entire instrument? Your entire instrument is both your note being tangible, right, the piece of paper, and the debt. Okay? So in order for them to acquire rights to a negotiable instrument, you must have both the tangible and the intangible. Well, how do you get the intangible, right? You get the intangible through the sale of the payment stream. How do you get the tangible? You're going to get the intangible in Texas through endorsement, negotiation, transfer, and delivery. So in Texas, we go to Verner's Texas Business Commerce Code 7501. Why? Because there it says, form of negotiation, requirements of due negotiation. Subsection A says, following rules apply to a negotiable, tangible document of title. Subsection 1, if the document's original terms run to the order of the named person, the document is negotiated by the named person's endorsement and delivery. People, I'm not making this up, okay? My job is to investigate and give you the latest and greatest information. Now, what you do with it is your own, okay? So, again, understand, I'm researching, we're investigating, we're looking at the statute. Did they do what was to be done, all right? I've looked at the note, I've looked at the deed of trust, right? I'm also looking at the deed of trust for what? to see, again, if there's any irregularities. I'm looking to see, is there a covenant 16? Is there a covenant 20? All right, covenant 16 usually pertains to governing law, rules of construction, severability. Covenant 20 usually pertains to a partial interest. And it says the note or a partial interest of the note may be sold one or more times without notice to the borrower. But again, they make it, again, it can be covenant 20, covenant 29, covenant 19. And I've done an amicus on this. About 10 years ago, I did an amicus. It was real simple, okay, because my brain looks at it like math, okay, all right? Because if you need the note, the debt, and the deed of trust in order to make a complete loan, okay, it's real simple. A plus B equals C. A does not equal C. B does not equal C. A plus B might equal C. And I did that amicus over 10 years ago. Back in 2015, I believe I did it for Neutsch's County. So all this is about is just having an education, all right? Going into public record, looking at public record. Are there any assignments of deed of trust, all right? Why? Well, if you understand the purpose of an assignment is to memorialize transactions pertaining to the sale of the tangible promissory note and the acquiring of rights, it does not cause the sale, nor does it cause the acquiring of rights, as those are done pursuant to statutory requirements of law, which haven't taken place yet. So I want to see, are there any assignments? Because if there's no assignments, then the only one with a claim as a secured party would be the original lender. And it's that simple. All right? The servicer is just the servicer. The lender, now, if you're in a deed of trust, such as Texas or California, all right, a lot of times they'll file what's called the substitution of trustee. But it's not the lender that's doing the substituting. Go to your deed of trust, go to like covenant 24 of the deed of trust, and it'll say substitution of trustee. And many times it'll say, and you have to read it because, again, the verb is very specific, but about 90% of the time it'll say, the lender, at its discretion, may substitute trustee. Lender. Okay, so what does that tell you? Well, only the lender can substitute. All right? But you need to point it out to them, right? You need to go to your deed of trust, go to the first or second page and look where it says lender is, and look who your lender is. Look where the lender's address is, okay? Because then when you go to your substitution of trustee, the lender's not going to be named. Usually, it's the loan servicer. And they claim, well, we're the beneficiary. But it says lender on your document, and you didn't sign it. I signed the damn document, right? So if I signed it, all right, it's my bad. So, I mean, if I let you get away with this, and again, it's very tricky in wording. So you need to understand, what does your document say? What governs my document? Okay? What should I do? So the whole purpose of coming to me is, right, is to get the evidence, right? And then you figure, right, so now we got evidence, right? How are we going to use this? Okay, great question, everybody. So you use the evidence, being the affidavit of Joe Esquivel. That's what you're going to present with your motion, with your complaint, with your administrative process. All right, why? All right, let's talk about what is an affidavit. What happens when you get arrested? What do they ask for every single time? A sworn affidavit. Because an affidavit is a statement of facts. And when sworn under penalty of perjury, it becomes a class 3 felony if you're lying. That's how they got General Flynn. So when I'm testifying, understand, and you present my affidavit under penalty of perjury, you know, if there's something that's fraudulent, I can go to jail. So trust me, at 67 years old, the last thing I'm going to do is put my name on the line. You know, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I just testified about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, in Lafayette, Louisiana, in person. I drove across Texas, was on stand 45 minutes, and this judge asked me, Mr. Esquivel, in the last 5 years, anybody been able to dispute or invalidate your affidavit? I said, no, ma'am. None of my affidavits have been invalidated. And they have not been properly disputed. You may not like what I say. You have not proved us wrong. So it's easier to say Joe Esquivel's full of crap, all right? His affidavit's bullshit. Well, the only reason they're saying that is because they cannot get around that affidavit, all right? We show you where your debt is. I challenge anyone out there. Prove me that we're wrong, all right? If I'm showing you that this is your data, and understand, right? When we get the data, your data consists of what we call indicators, right? These are data points within your note, within your deed of trust or mortgage or security deed if you're in the state of Georgia, right? Because the first thing you're asked is, Joe, I want to see the evidence. I want to see the evidence. So we give you the evidence and we give you your docs and we explain it to you, right? So you have an understanding, okay? Now, with me not being an attorney, okay, I can't give legal opinions and legal conclusions to everybody, but guess what? I work with some great guys. You know, last week I had Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse. My office before that, I had Aquaman and Spider-Man. They're phenomenal. I'm telling you, I was talking to Mickey. Mickey says, Joe, you're not going to believe this shit Donald was coming up with. He said, Donald put a bunch of sentences together. I said, yeah. He goes, Joe, they form sentences. I said, really? He goes, yeah. He said, and then he took a bunch of those sentences together and he put them together, Joe, and they form paragraphs. No shit. I said, Joe, you're not going to believe this. Joe, he took a bunch of those paragraphs. He put all those together. Joe, they led to ideas that led to a narrative. I said, damn, I said, you guys aren't even attorneys. He goes, I know. So Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse put together educational notes using your loan documents and your state statutes, okay, that are legal conclusions and legal opinions that one could come to if you had an understanding of your loan documents and your state statutes at large, okay? Now, those educational notes, understand, that's not going to go in with your affidavit, right? You're going to use those. Those are the bullets when you put whatever process, complaint, motion, whatever, right? That is what you use against them, right? You don't go and just say, hey, Danny, man, just add this notes. Here's these notes I just got. Take a look at them. You know, hell, you might as well just hand the robber the gun. Here, shoot me right now, you know? But having an understanding of how to go in there and attack, you're so much better prepared. All right? Because understand, they're going to come shooting at you. You know? You just have to understand. Okay? Your debt's an unsecured debt. You have evidence of this. Okay? You're going to get an affidavit that supports that. All right? So the question now is how do you get educated? Well, you get educated by understanding what's going on, understanding your state statutes, okay? Understanding all the different, you know, things that you have remedy for. So I can't tell you what to do. I can tell you what not to do. And I've tried enough crazy stuff. I've done A for B. I've done ACH. And, you know, I've had those people with the letters we love to hate come knocking on my door. So I've done all the crazy stuff like everybody else. But you know what? I'm not a sheeple. You know, I'm not going to conform to society because society is all messed up, right? We need to stand and we need to have an understanding, okay? I know if government says go right, hey, I'm hard left. They say left, hard right. Go up, I'm going down. Because understand, I mean, if you've ever, for example, a little off topic, but if you ever look at IRS, do they ever define what income is? Do they ever define it? No. I've gone through all their manuals. I've gone through all their CDs, gone through thousands of pages, and I can't find a single definition.
Wow.
You know?
Seriously. That's insane.
Or a class 6. I say, no, I'm a class 5. Everything goes through an LLC or a trust for me. But right now, you know, when you go through all the IRS stuff and it says, okay, well, who pays tax? Well, federal employees pay taxes, and you pay gambling taxes, and you pay real estate taxes. Other than that, it's voluntary. Now, they're going to tell you what they want you to pay, But again, I've been on them for 10 years, okay, and I'm getting remedied. That's all I'm going to say now, but, you know, they took my passport. They took my wife's passport. I got my passport back, brand new one, got my wife's brand new one, you know. So there's a lot of crazy stuff out there, but I can tell you, people, if you don't take risks, you know, you're not going to learn. You're not going to grow. All right. I'm open to any questions anybody has. So,
we have we have a couple of them, but I have one first.
Sure.
Sadly, by the time people, you know, contact me, they're either on life support or critical condition. So when should somebody contact you? Should, like, I just bought a house, I just did the mortgage and closing process, and
as long as if they're current, it's great. If you're falling behind, again, you're falling behind, and we can help. Now, understand, not saying, but for me, bankruptcy worked. Okay, why? What is bankruptcy is called refresh for a reason. Yeah, I did a full-blown Chapter 7, okay, but understand, my credit was already cracked. So, yes, when you're in Chapter 7, no, I'm not an attorney, but I'm telling you what I went through. So I went through a Chapter 7 full-blown, barely made it in by skin of my teeth, but I made it. And I hired an attorney the first time, and she listed my assets on Schedule D as a dog, and I already into this, just starting. I'm like, no, you know what? This isn't secured, because I had a gentleman take a look at my loan. He said my loan was sold to Fannie Mae, and I don't know who this woman is, but I've never talked to anybody by the name of Fannie Mae. So the attorney thought I was a smart ass, and she said, well, you know, it's going to cost you a few $100s. So I told her to go to hell. So what happened was, I had a friend of mine that was a lawyer. He was not my attorney. He was my friend. He happened to be a lawyer. And I was at his house, and he said, Joe, come over here. And I'm over there, he's playing games. I went to his computer. He says, click on this button. I go and I click on this little icon, and all these paperworks just go all over the screen. He said, Joe, you know, for $25, you could amend your complaint yourself, and you could do this pro se. And that light bulb went over my head. Like, no shit. I can do this myself? He goes, yeah, you just have to read the law, understand it, do it yourself. And I did. I went, and I had a paralegal friend of mine, and I fired my attorney on the spot. And I was going against, back then, it was law firm. It was Tiffany Bosco and Company. Okay, they just went into Las Vegas, and I won every motion that was filed in court. I won. They were unable to lift my stay for 2 years until my debt was discharged as an unsecured debt. Wow. I put a renter into my house for the next 5 years. So, you know, yes, I had to leave Las Vegas because the AG came after me, right? Because in the state of Nevada, the only ones that can help people in foreclosure are attorneys or nonprofits. So even though we had formed a 501c3 from scratch, okay, if all debt is sold, can it be encumbered? Once your debt is sold, it's no longer encumbered.
Okay.
Okay, so the encumbrance is, okay, so when they record your deed of trust or mortgage, at that time, that security instrument attaches itself to the debt, okay? Now, once they sell the debt, there's nothing attached to this. It's just hanging in the wind. They sold the debt. The purpose with that security instrument was to stay attached to the debt. Looking at Carpenter v. Logan. Carpenter v. Logan. I mean, that is what everyone hangs their hat upon, but very few people have an understanding of. So, in Carpenter v. Logan, here's what Carpenter v. Logan says.
You can share your screen.
Oh, I can? Okay. Give me a second.
Yeah, it should be like a little monitor with a plus in the middle of it, I believe.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Oh, here. Okay, let's see. Slides in. Share screen. 52. Can you, there, if you can see my, here we go. Can you see?
Hang on, let me pop it up for you. There you go.
All right. So let's just take a look at a couple of things first, because people ask me, you know, Joe, can they really sell my loan? Okay. So if you look at the top here, okay, here's what it says. In Commercial Money Center, Inc. bankruptcy, the Ninth Circuit Appellate Court had no difficulty concluding that rights to the intangible payment stream, your debt, can be stripped from records that evidence them. Okay? So it says, and the exact quote was, this language on its face defines chattel paper to mean records that evidence certain things, including monetary obligations. Payment streams stripped from underlying leases are not records that evidence monetary obligations. They are monetary obligations. Therefore, we agree with NetBlank that payment streams are not chattel paper. This is why when I say, you know, that your payment stream has been stripped out, and people say, well, how do you know that that can happen? Well, I've got a court case that even supports what I say. Okay. Now, when we get to Carpenter v. Logan, here's Carpenter v. Logan. So this was a case that came out, and it has not been overturned. Okay. The case was in 1871, and it was opined in 1872. The interesting thing to notice is that the Negotiables Act of this came out prior to the Negotiables Act of 1881. Okay, and this was about wheat initially. So in Carpenter v. Logan, the U.S. Supreme Court stated, the note and mortgage are inseparable, the former as essential, the latter as an incident. An assignment of the note carries a mortgage with it, while an assignment of the latter alone is a nullity. The mortgage can have no separate existence. The mortgage, when the note is paid, expires. It cannot survive for a moment the debt which the note represents. It was written like 200 years ago. This dependent and incidental relation is a controlling consideration. So back then, again, when they're talking an assignment of the note, an endorsement of the note carries a mortgage with it. This is why sometimes they say, well, I don't need an assignment. Correct. If the note was properly endorsed, right, paid to the order of John Doe, signed by Joe Esquivel, okay, then the mortgage would follow that note, right? Because, again, you're naming a party. But many times, again, how many times do we see assignments of mortgage, assignments of deed of trust, but yet there is no endorsement on the note? And here it says, an assignment of the latter alone is a nullity, right? The latter is the mortgage, right? The former is the note. The former is essential. The latter is as an incident. So, but very few people understand this. So even when the attorneys are citing this, okay, understand, they don't even know what they're citing. They keep telling you, well, the mortgage follows the note. Well, wait a minute. It follows a proper secured party. If there is no one named, it cannot follow anyone. And to give you an idea, so if you look at this document on the screen, so what I do is, it doesn't matter what state you guys are in, okay? I've got all 50 states, right? So these are, I've pulled all 50 states. So in Texas, these are the assigned and recordation statutes, okay? That's what these are, recordation statutes. These are about records of releases, okay? And then I have, these are ERIR statutes, okay? And then we get into your state statutes. So for all 50 states, it doesn't matter if you're in Alaska or Arizona. I've already gone through, and I've had I've had LexisNexis, I've had Westlaw over the years. So I pulled all 50 states. So in Texas, these are the statutes that we use. This is 3203, this is 3205, here's 7501, 3110, 3115 if we had an incomplete instrument. So for example, if say they put that stamping on your note, I call it an incomplete stamping, right? So I'm going to cite 3115, Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse in your education notes, they're going to cite 3115. Right? Why? Because it's incomplete. And then they're going to also cite 3110. Why? Because identification of person to whom the instrument is made payable. So when we do your investigation, when you get the educational notes, all right, anything that is cited, right, you're going to get this, right? You're going to get a Word document. This way, when you put together whatever project that you're working on, right, you're not going to a PDF and trying to cut and paste, or you're going to go to Adobe and convert to an OCR. And everybody says, Joe, I never do that. Bullshit, guys. I would do it. So I know everyone else does it because they've done it to all my stuff. All right. So when we do the investigation, what do you get? You get an affidavit. All right. You get a sworn affidavit. Now you're going to get that in a PDF. All right. As well as I will overnight the original to you in a priority mail within a couple of days after we've completed it. All right. You're also going to get trust information sheet. So for example, I'll just show you just for shits and giggles. A second. Let's just show you. Because everybody's curious to what they're going to get. So this way I can just, it's not going to be yours, but you'll just see somebody's. Okay, let's just. There we go. So for example, here's a trust sheet, okay, where it's got the homeowner's information.
No, we're still seeing the same image.
No.
Change your tab on your end.
I changed my tab. Let's see. Hold on. Let's see. One second.
Let me kick this one.
Let's see.
Oh no, I don't want to kick guess.
Hold on. Let's see if I can
Kick that.
undo it. Let's just. It's trying to show your group. So this is just a. It won't work, but I'll put together a John Doe one. But anyways, what you're getting is a trust information sheet. You're going to get a Word document that you can build from, okay? Because whatever project you're going to work on, rather than type everything out, this way you can just cut, paste, all right, and just transfer the data from one spot to another. It makes it a hell of a lot easier. When you get the educational notes, understand, you're going to get a Word document. Right? Because if I gave you a PDF, the first thing you're going to do is go to Adobe, hit convert to OCR, everything's going to go kittywampus. And I know that because I set it up to go kittywampus. I layered everything so you could not do it properly. Right? So understand, you're going to get everything so you can use it proper. Right? Because last thing I want someone to do is to bitch that they can't use what they've been given. Right? My job is to make it easy as I can for you. And then your job is to just do whatever you're going to do, right? My job is to give you the evidence, right? Share with you everything that I can, the latest and greatest information, all right? And that's what we do better than anybody else. So what other questions do we have?
This person said they're in foreclosure right now and have 2 months to figure something out. I do have time here in Phoenix.
Okay. It's 2 months. I mean, he's probably been in default for about at least 90 days. Yeah, again, so Arizona is a non-judicial state. They're going to foreclose, so you would have to go on the offense. You know.
Define that. What does offense look like?
You're going to have to go and challenge their standing, challenge their capacity. All right, going in there, you're going to have to file a quiet title, a slander title, some type of complaint, right, where you're challenging the capacity of the people that are foreclosing. So that's why I said it's like playing basketball. If you're always on defense, you're never going to rally. Okay, you have to go on offense. That's, you know, you just get clobbered. But so, I mean, if there was any way he could cure and then go on offense, that'd be the best. Because only two things are going to stop a sale in a non-judicial state, okay? And those two things are going to be a bankruptcy or a TRO. Okay, in order to get a TRO, you're going to have to file a complaint. You're going to have a temporary restraining order. So you're going to have the order of restraint. You're going to have the motion, okay? And then you're going to have to serve the other party. You're probably going to want to do an ex parte hearing so you get heard quickly. So, I mean, that's one way. And then the only other way other than that is to file a bankruptcy. And again, they're both bonds, okay? They are. But if you understand, and, you know, I went through the bankruptcy for me. At that point, I was going from being a union contractor and 7 figures to suddenly, I'm floating 30 to 50 G's a week and I can't make payroll, you know, because they tell me, well, Joe, we can't pay it 6 to 9 months and I need $500,000. So I had to lay off 12 guys and walk them down to the Department of Labor. And that's what put me in the situation that I am today, you know. But for me, it worked. You know, bankruptcy worked. But it's knowing, because understand, they're going to produce a proof of claim, but their proof of claim is only going to be what? Records showing you've made payments. Okay, yeah, I've made payments, but what's your record going to be? All right, you're going to have an affidavit from Joe Esquivel showing where your debt is. Okay, you're going to have a copy of your note, right? And that party that's coming forward with foreclosure, they're not on that document. Okay, so they don't have the capacity to foreclose if you're in a proper complaint. The problem is, in an administrative state, they don't need the note to foreclose. All they need to say is you're in default and we're just taking your house. And it doesn't matter. There isn't a damn thing you can do. And that's what they do. In Nevada and California, okay, they commit administratively. And that's why I tell people, you know, listen, if there's any way you can pay the mortgage, okay? If you can't, then you can't, right? And I know, because again, I was in that situation. You know, we went from having everything to having nothing and scraping by, and I couldn't even have anybody hire me because we were too damn good. But you know, don't just not do anything. All right, if you're not going to do anything, at least save every damn penny that you have, so when you have to move, you've got a place to move to. Okay, I see a lot of people that think that, you know, well, because I found errors in my loan, I'm not going to make my payments. Don't do that. Okay, if you can make the payment, make the payment. You know, the idea is to fight while you're in the house. You don't want to fight them out of the house, right? Because it's tougher to get back in than leaving. Once you leave, you're out. And it's hard again. And we have gotten reversals. We have. But they're tough to come by. And it is an upward battle. So again, anything you can do. That's why I tell people, you know, because some people just don't have the means. You lost your job, they got cancer or whatever, and do not leave your house. You know, hire somebody, come in there, don't leave your house. You know, as long as possible. You know, when they drag you out again, you know, they're going to have to evict you. And when they evict you, again, they got to give you a writ of eviction. And even when they give you that writ, you still have 5 days, right? If you answer within the 5 days, now they got to start over again. So, you know, there's all sorts of ways, but, you know, do not go quietly into the dark. I would say that.
Don't just pack your shit and walk away because you can't make next month's mortgage. Stay in there until the constables or sheriffs show up and go, don't. And trust me, you will know within a week when you're going to get that knock on the door. You'll know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a certain sound.
Yeah, you'll just know it's coming, and you should be prepared by then.
Yeah.
I had a friend who dealt on the with foreclosures. First Tuesday of every month. They're at the Bayou
Yeah.
place over here buying houses, and a lot of times they would try to go find if the homeowner was still in the property, and if they were still in the property, they would try to work out a deal with them to take over the property, and that whole scenario. So a lot of times they would contact the listed trustee on the foreclosure listing, and the trustee would say, okay, you've worked out a deal with the homeowner, an informal contract, we'll pull it off this month's foreclosure list. Well, I've through listening to him go through all this bullshit, a lot of times they would just say that just to pacify him, or you just can't get a hold of them. So just because the trustee tells you that they're not going to put it on the foreclosure listing for that auction that month, you can't take their word for it. I would get it in writing. So don't just get it over the phone. I've just personal experience I'm sharing with you guys. Now, obviously, you deal with mortgages, and that's mainly what we've spoken about here. And I want to cover a little bit more on mortgages, and then I want to dive into some other financial vehicles that you do address as well. On the mortgage, because you're dealing with this, what do you see as the current environment of the mortgage industry, the loan industry, world economics?
It's still going strong, because understand, all the loans are being bought by GSEs left and right. And understand, I saw a Freddie Mac loan damn near $1 million, like 975 2 months ago. So the only thing that's changed is the amount of the loans, period. Okay, over 90% of all loans are going through GSEs.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yes. Well, understand. Okay, it's real simple, because if you look at the buyers, right, or none of the lenders, quote lenders, JP Morgan Chase, Penny Mac, Rocket Mortgage, it's not their money they're loaning you. These are table funded deals, warehouse deals. All right. So it's not their money. They could care less.
Explain that to everybody. So, warehouse deals, what does that look like?
All right. So the banks are not allowed to loan their money. Okay. And banks cannot lend depositor money. Okay. So what they do is they extend you a line of credit based on a third-party FICO score, based on your net worth, and based on your debt-to-income ratio. This is why they're saying, we need to see your last 2 years of taxes, right? Because they know how much income is going in and going out, right? And they're getting your FICO score, all right, from TransUnion, from Equifax, all right? Because they want to see what is your debt, right? How much debt are you carrying? Are you a good risk or a bad risk, right? But they never lend you any money. They extend you a line of credit, right? So that line of credit can come from a warehouse. It can come, from other sources, but it does not come from the bank. It is not where they are writing you a check out of their pocket. I haven't seen anyone yet that I know that's gotten a check from the bank. So when it says, for a loan I have received, what are they're sending you a line of credit, because this credit did not exist. For example, when I signed my loan, okay, I knew in advance, right, my loan was going to Ginnie Mae, right? So even though I signed papers at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right, my loan was not funded until they sold the debt, right? Because the lender that I went to, they were not a Ginnie Mae retailer, okay? They were not big enough, so they didn't have the capacity to sell the deal to Ginnie Mae. So what they did is they sold my debt to Wells Fargo, and Wells Fargo sold my debt to Ginnie Mae. And I got a call at 7 o'clock at night because I was friends with my realtor, and I said, listen, would you mind just giving me a call when it's been funded? Because I was curious how long it was going to take. And I got a call at 7 o'clock at night. Oh, Joe, just so you know, your loan's been funded. with Ginnie Mae. So they endorsed, again, because my lender was too small. My lender sold the debt to Wells Fargo. Then Wells Fargo, because they got an agreement with Ginnie Mae, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, they're big boys, they sold the deal. So when I go to my note, there's an endorsement to Wells Fargo, right? And then, again, I know that because I knew in advance that I was getting an FHA deal. I had a choice. I could go FDA, which is Federal Department of Agriculture, which out here in Maine or Texas, they had pretty good rates. But I got a good rate, just going FHA, so I went FHA.
You said USDA, right?
It's called FDA.
FDA?
FDA, Federal Department of Agriculture. Those are the Farmer Mac loans.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know you can go through the USDA and they have a rural development program.
Very similar. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Very, very similar. Yeah. So, and because the farmers can get lower interest rates. And out here, like in Maine or where we're at, again, they're building all around us. But like when we moved in here, I think we had like 8,000 people in Maine. And now they've got like another 10,000.
Easy.
And, oh yeah, and like before, we didn't even have an HEB. We had a Walmart on 290. That was it. We didn't have any banks. Now we got Bank of America. We got 2 or 3 banks in here. We have a Starbucks. So, but yeah, it's really interesting because think about it. If the banks aren't lending you money, I mean, everybody knows, the story about the goldsmith, how they would take gold for people and they'd give them notes, and that's it. Think about it. I mean, when you go and you sign this paperwork, right? Nothing is created until your signature is on that piece of paper. It's like if anyone ever has the time, I've got most of the docs. I'll see if I can send it to you later, Floyd. There's that case in Minnesota, the River case. And that's a specific case where the homeowner got the bank president on the stand and got the bank president to say that he did not lend him any money.
Right.
Money was created upon his signature. The problem is that because of the blowback from the public, all right, that is the last thing they want out. And so if you cite that in a motion and a plea, they will, fine you big time because you're not supposed to use that information. That's like everyone says, well, Joe, will they ever let it public known that, this is bullshit? No, I don't believe so because it would shutter the entire economy. I mean, think about this. We have over 6,000 counties in the United States of America Republic, okay? And every one of these counties is like 6,000 women. So they all have their own laws and everything, okay? But they're still, the basic format is this. The purpose of recordation is to give constructive notice to the world, right? So the purpose of an assignment, all right, is to memorialize that transaction pertaining to the sale of the note. So when you get a copy of your note from the loan servicer and you don't see any endorsements on it, that's the first thing that, that's going to click in your head. Hey, there's no endorsements. Wonder why. All right. And then when you go to MERS and you look up and say, wow, they sold my debt, but no one's endorsed the note. I go to public records. There's no assignments. Again, slowly the lights will start to come on. And I hope they do. Because everybody needs to have a proper understanding. I don't know what I don't know. Right now, there's even some states out there that do not have statutes for recording an assignment. For example, Maryland, in the state of Maryland, they do not have any statutes for recording assignments. However, there are consequences in the state of Maryland for failure to not record an assignment of deed of trust. And I found that out the hard way because back in 2015, I had opened my big mouth and I said, yes, assignments are to be required in the state of Maryland. They said, no, they're not. Okay, so I did not know what I didn't know, and I can say that today. But that's not why the homeowner lost. The homeowner lost because the homeowner did not file an answer to the motion.
Mm.
So the bank served her with the motion. She didn't answer, and they got what's called a default judgment. People, if you're in a court action, answer it. You say, Joe, I'm not an attorney. It doesn't matter. Just answer it, right? Because failure to answer will put you in default, right? If you screw up and you present a bad motion, okay, that's okay, right? You can fix it. But if you don't answer, right, that is the worst thing that you could do, right, is not answer. So again, answer. Use AI, use ChatGPT, use Gork, whatever his name is, that Elon Musk has, his AI.
Grok.
Grok, there you go. I'm picturing this tall tree giving AI advice.
And don't use anything from Anna Von Reitz, David Straight, Sovereign Citizen, any of that paperwork. Trust me.
Do not. Do not.
You might as well just go in there and put your head in a guillotine and pull the lever yourself. I'm serious. You get your head chopped off.
I agree with you. And understand. And I've had people asking, well, Joe, can I rescind this? Well, understand. They're not going to allow you to. Once you signed it, you signed it. Even though Judge Scatella put forth that you can rescind, no, they don't allow it. They don't allow it. Unless it's 3 days, you signed it, it's yours.
Yep. Blood oath.
Thanks, Floyd.
Not sealed and delivered. All right. Next question. The 50-year mortgage.
That scares the crap out of me. I mean, the amortization on that is going to be ridiculous.
It's stupid.
I mean, if you're if you're paying after 30 years, right, on a $100,000 loan, you're paying back $250. Now, add another 20 years on that. So instead of paying back, it's probably going to be damn near $400,000 on a $100,000 loan. And for the first 20 years, all you're paying is interest. First 25 years, all you're paying is interest. That's crazy.
It's insane. I can't even believe somebody even threw it out there and it caught traction.
Well, there's something out there right now like Rocket Mortgage is offering 1% down. People, that is about the cheapest that I have heard, 1% down, and it's through Rocket Mortgage. I don't know.
What's the lending rate?
I have no clue.
Wow.
Right? But whatever you sign, make sure it is a fixed rate, irregardless of the rate. Make sure it is fixed. Brother, if you sign an ARM, you're just signing a death certificate, okay? Because the first time that it adjusts, it's not going to be good. All right? And we used to laugh in the industry because when you look at these adjustable rate notes, right, and it's got a floor rate of 2%, it's got a cap rate of 17%. Okay, that's a cap. All right, and you're like, well, they said don't worry about it. It's not gonna, not gonna happen. Understand, when your payment goes from $1,500 or $2,000 a month to $3,500, $4,000 a month, okay, 90 days after it has gone up is when usually you're going to see the first default. Okay, usually that's when you're going to see it. Right, within 90 days of that adjustable, it's going to go. I don't know, 50-year mortgage scares the crap out of me, Floyd.
Well, I mean, just think if you're 18 years old, that means, you're 68 when you pay it off. Yeah. Yeah, that's if you made it then healthy.
I don't know, but I don't
Retired.
know.
It's just funny how it all seamlessly ends right there, and
I mean, right now it's scary because my youngest is 20, will be 28, and I don't know how he's going to get in the house.
it's it's going to be
It,
different. They may not be able to get something in the city. They may have to, because that's my goal for 2026 is to get out somewhere rural, live off the land, get off the grid, whole 9 yards. I want to get out of the matrix. I want to unplug. I don't want to have to use a bank app. Nothing. I don't. You know, Not to get off topic, um, but the business model for all these television manufacturers, Samsung, LG, all of them, doesn't matter, Sony, they are collecting your data.
oh, I know.
Yeah.
I, and just to give you a little bit off topic, but for example, when we went through a couple of years ago and they had the riots here in Austin and they were overturning cars and everything,
Uh-huh.
and everyone was saying, oh, there's no cops or anything, down here. They don't know who's there. It was like a free for all. It was not because um,
Austin terminated its police academy, correct?
I'm not sure about that, but I can tell you that there was data streaming on monitors that a gentleman that I have firsthand knowledge of, and he said, Joe, I'm looking at all these monitors, and this. I asked the IT guy what's going on. He was at Cape Maplewood. He said, that's all the phones that are down in Austin. He said, that's all of those data lines. He says, we can tell every single phone what's going on. He said, so we know who's down there. We know who's causing the ruckus. So even though, you know, you think it's not happening, it's happening every day. If you see it on TV, it's already happening. It is. I mean, that is the reality. The government's getting it. The question is, are you doing anything that's going to have them point a finger at you? If you're not, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. I mean, there's enough other things to worry about, right, than every single thing that they're looking at. That's
Right.
mine.
I believe it was Justice Gorsuch who stated that everybody commits a federal felony every day. Everybody. And that we have way too many laws. Yeah. Okay.
That's pretty interesting. It really, really is, Floyd. It is.
It just tells
And
you how damaged our society is.
oh yeah, but I enjoy it. I mean, we do these investigations, and we do see people get remedy. You know, and it's neat to see the light bulb comes on because they say, I had no idea all this was going on. And that's the number one thing, for me is to educate people. All right, you don't need investigation, right? But if you do, we're here for you. You know, I'll tell you what I will do with your group. I'll send you a bunch of files I have pertaining to all sorts of stuff. Oh, Thomas Shave, um, all sorts of things, and you can share it with your group if you'd like. You're more than welcome to.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh,
If I have
it,
time to go through it, that's my problem. Time
I
to
know,
go through
but
files.
it's some good stuff, and it's
Yeah.
free for your group. Because I know that you have nothing but time on your hands, so I figured,
Got a life sentence.
yeah. But you know what? I like sharing this stuff because what happens is once I'm gone, I'm gone. And so I tell people, they say, well, what do I do with it? Read it. Read it. Understand it. Share it. You know, Thomas Shape is I haven't seen him in a decade or so, but he was the one that got me going. Thomas Shape, I mean, he came out in the late 90s. He was a CPA, and his specialty was bringing companies public. And he had an epiphany from God. And God told him to stop what he was doing and to go start helping people and explain to them real accounting. And that's how, and Thomas Schaefer put out a couple of books, and I read the books, and I ended up locating them. I was living in Vegas, and he was in Henderson, which is like, from Austin to, say, Round Rock.
Okay.
And so I was able to meet him, because, we shared that I lived a mile from where he was living in Elgin at the time when he had his epiphany. And I was able to purchase all of Tom Schaef's audio.
Oh,
okay.
Wow. Joe froze. Yep, he's still frozen. Yep, let me kick him in the back until he comes alive back there. There he is.
Joe, have you got
All right.
that in an MP3? I'm like, what's an MP3? So I just gave him away. But, again, Thomas Schaefer, if you understand him, I've got his cassettes, How to Argue Like a Bank Expert Witness. And again, it's interesting things. When you start going down this road, and, I've got information from the U.S. House of Senate Representatives. So if you read what it says on the U.S. Senate rolls, again, this is from our legislature where they're talking about this information. So it is important, and it's free. It doesn't cost nobody a damn thing. Just free. All they have to do is just listen to you, Floyd. Just pay attention.
No. Let me ask you this. So when somebody sits down to sign an agreement, a contract for a financial transaction, whether it's a car loan, mortgage closing, credit card, whatever, are there any tips or tricks that you would suggest to anybody that would make any difference at the front end before you get to the back end?
At the front end, no. It's not, because understand, the documents are what they are. Okay? Either you sign them or you don't. Okay? Once you sign them, you're obligated. All right? So now the obligation is going to be sold. So the question then is, okay, what are my rights? Okay, and what am I going to do? Am I going to continue to pay for this? Am I going to discharge it? What am I going to do? It used to be, prior to COVID, that mortgages you could discharge pretty readily. But ever since COVID, what happened, a lot of people got laid off. And so now mortgages are really hard to discharge, even though you've got all the information, the group, where it's at. But again, everybody's just dragging their feet on doing the actual discharge. All right. So again, whether it's a car, whether it's a boat, I've seen discharges. I got a client that had a American Express account, got it discharged. All right. He's still fighting on his mortgage, but he got his American Express discharged.
And how long did that take? Do you know? Do you remember?
I'm guessing about 6 months.
Okay. People need to understand the timeline arc that it takes to challenge some of these things.
You're talking on the minimum a year, okay, and it can go 2, 3, 4 years. I've got a client, he won, and from New Mexico, and Chris was a client I've had. He's been a client since 2014. I've testified at least 3 or 4 times in his case.
Oh, wow.
And Bill's testified at least 4 or 5 times in his case. So, understand that this is not for the faint of heart.
Right.
Right. It really isn't. And I'm very serious at that, because this will grind you, right? This will test you. It's going to test your relationships with your wife, with your kids, because this becomes part of you, and you're either all in or you're all out. And that's what I try to explain to people. When I filed my federal complaint in 2015, understand here's what happened to me. We're in Texas, we're living here, and the business is going now. And I filed a federal complaint. And I served 3 parties. So now I am fighting 3 law firms. So on day 1, law firm A files a request for the judge to take judicial notice and list over 100 cases. On Tuesday, firm 2 request for the courts to take judicial notice, list another 100+ cases. On Wednesday, law firm 3 request for the courts to take judicial notice, another 100+ cases. Now understand, I had my own PMA, full-time paralegal. I could not keep up. And so I had to make a choice. You either stay and you fight the fight, because it's 24 hours a day, or I run my business. So I dismissed my case. But understand how powerful my case was. I had 3 law firms in 3 days. I had over 350 cases that were cited for the courts to take judicial notice against me. So they do not like me at all. They hate me. Okay? Why? Because they can't prove that we're wrong. So it's easier to just say, Mr. Hudson's full of crap. You know, we're not going to allow his stuff in here. All right? And they'll use whatever reason to keep it out.
Right.
But that's the reality. Okay? They don't like the nonconformists, right? They see somebody like you, Floyd, or me, and they're like, hell no. We want those sheeple in here. Because they're easier to control.
Yep.
They are.
They're going to test your temerity. And as Joe did very wisely, he looked at the broader picture and realized, I'm in a war, but I have all these battles going on. Which battles do I want to consistently fight? Which ones do I want to surrender? Because that is just going to deplete my resources, my time, money, and energy. And I may or may not win. It's really going to have no effect on the overall picture. So that's how you have to look at everything when you're addressing all this is, you know, because that's what they love to do. Just like he told you, you're up against 3 multi-million-dollar law firms with unlimited money, unlimited resources, unlimited manpower, and they're going to bury you what I call paper. They're going to cover you in paper and you cannot get out. They're going to bury you. And that's what happened. He got overwhelmed and, you know, he would have spent the next, probably what, 45 days.
And you have to understand, okay, I had a full-time, damn good paralegal, the best paralegal that was out there at that time.
Right.
I mean, Amy was phenomenal. I stole her from another company because they hired a man to take over her role, and they wanted one of my attorneys. So I gave my attorney. I said, by the way, how about if I use your paralegal? Yeah, you can have her. So I took her, and you know, she was phenomenal. But you're right. You have to know when to cut your losses, because for me, it was a matter of staying in business. Yep. Because literally, when you show up in court, if you do not answer, again, you're going to end up paying their attorney fees. You know, when you go into federal court, boom, that's $400. Then another $200. You know, and then you have to serve everyone. All right. So, I mean, the costs add up real fast. And so you've got to make a distinction, okay? Is this worth fighting for, right? Because it's going to take all of your money, all of your time, all of your resources. And if it's worth it, God bless you and stay in it, okay? And we'll help you and do the best that we can. But if you can't, then, you know, then for me, I had to keep my business open. And that was more important. I had to have a roof over my head, right? And as much as I wanted to fight, and I had the goods on them, all right? I had the goods on them, but it's like, is it worth it? No. I already put my wife through enough hell. It's like, no, now it's just time to just move on.
Right. Let's address the appearance and disappearance, because when people, God bless you guys over there, and you know, who I don't want to ever go to court. I don't want to step in a court, all that narrative, which is mumbo jumbo. Listen, when you get served, that's an invitation to the party. Whether or not you're going to like the party, that's a whole different story. But
Still
you
show
need
up.
to respect the invitation and show up to be heard, to express your viewpoint, whether, oh, this is a great party. Man, this place sucks. This blows. Let's go.
Right.
But you have to appear and not disappear. Because when you disappear, you just respected everybody who came to the party and expected your presence, and you didn't show up. So they take that as a slight. Now they're going to hold you accountable. There's going to be repercussions and circumstances. You're probably going to not like your next visit when they want you to appear. So
I totally agree with you. I mean, I couldn't agree more.
yes, you have to do something.
Right, because understand, when you show, again, you're showing by special appearance anyways, okay? You're not showing as a straw man, you know, or I'm not showing as a straw man. I'm there by special appearance.
Right.
You know? So, but like you said, it's really interesting because I take for granted it as, you know, others in the industry, you know, when you get served, and you, at one point in time it will, you know, I've been served. I've been sued by, for example, we did an investigation in Wisconsin, and it was for a campground, and the campground got sold. I did an investigation. It turns out that that debt was sold and was placed into a bond series, and I located the bond. And I produced an affidavit to support my findings, and when they went to court, the judge undid the sale. And you speak of raising holy heck. I mean, about a week later, I'm getting phone calls at night yelling at me. You know, do you know what you did to my brother? And, you know, all of this. Next thing I know, I get a knock on the door and I'm being served. You know, he says, you know, I got something for you. I said, all right, well, here's the address. I'll tell you how to get to me, you know, and they served me. But the difference is, the gentleman that ended up serving me is now one of my clients. So that process server, I now locate his clients when he has to serve them. So, you know, never run away, okay? Better to run to the light than away from the light, okay? Because they're going to shoot you down, all right? So for me, if you're going to come, I want to see it coming. Because what ended up happening is that I was supposed to be a witness for the opposing counsel. Well, what happened was the attorney, the state's attorney, read my affidavit, and they wanted me to testify for the state. And I said, well, you know that I'm in Texas, and, you know, there's a per diem, you're going to pay for a hotel, you're going to pay for, you know, I got a minimum. It's going to cost you. And she says, that's okay. She says, we'll contact you 2.5 weeks out from the trial. So I'm thinking that I'm going to be testifying for one person. Turns out the other party subpoenas me and has me testifying for the state. 2.5 weeks prior to the trial, I get a call from the state's attorney. Mr. Esquivel, everything's been satisfied. Your services are no longer needed. Thank you very much.
Wow.
You know, but I'll tell you what, Floyd, that is some great advice that you're telling everyone, right? If you get served, irregardless, if it's BS, if it's horse pucky, it does not matter. Read it, answer it, okay? You can say, Joe, I'm not an attorney. Okay, you may not be an attorney, right? But take a look at the document, all right, on a line-by-line basis, see what it says, and just present an answer.
Yep. Here, I'm gonna give him a quick tutorial.
There you go.
This is my appendix for some exhibits that I had from my writ of habeas corpus. But up here at the top is the style and the heading. That's all this is called up here. This is the name of the vehicle that this is, and this is the petitioner's appendix in support of his Article 1107 brief. Okay, that's what this is. So if this was, let's just say, a motion, okay, motion for leave to file out of time notice of appeal. All right, so The next place you want to go look in the document is the back at the prayer, because the prayer says, okay, I see what they're asking for. Now, what do they want? You don't have to read the arguments inside, because that's later down the road. You just need to know what they're filing. Is it a motion? Is it a writ? Is it a what it is? And then go see what they want. Boom, in the back under the prayer. So when you get served, you're going to get served a summons, and it's going to have this case and style up here, style and number. So all you need to do is just get you a blank sheet of paper, a pen, copy this up here. Just copy that. Now you've done your pro se formality. The court's going to know exactly what you're talking about because you've used all of their verbiage. Now you just write a letter. Dear Judge, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't have to be any formal. You can be in cursive. It can be printed. It can be in any color ink. It can even be on toilet paper roll wrappers, because I've submitted a motion to the United States Supreme Court on toilet paper roll wrappers. Absolutely. I swear to God. So that's what pro se, because you are a pro se litigant, you're not held to the same standards as an attorney. Your rules are very loosely adopted in the court rules, whether they're local or state or federally issued. So that's all you have to do. Just get you can do it on a legal pad. David Ruiz in the Ruiz versus Estelle case actually wrote part of his litigation on toilet paper. Absolutely. So it doesn't matter what the medium is. Just get something and send it in. Send it to all the parties that are listed: the judge, the clerk, the prosecuting attorney, the defense attorney, the plaintiff's attorney, whatever the label is. Make sure everybody's name that's listed on there with an address, that they get a copy of it. Now, I'll tell you what worked for me. And I'm not endorsing this methodology. I'm not stating that you use it. I'm not giving you financial, medical, legal, or friendly advice. Go do your own research. But for me, because at the time I was so heavily litigated with multiple cases, multiple courts, I got served by the state of Texas for child support. And I'm like, man, nobody in prison wins child support. Nobody. I don't care what. I've seen guys get judgments, $500,000 as soon as they walk out of prison on parole or discharge. That's their debt. They got to start paying. So when they go to work, their paycheck's going to get garnished. So I was like, damn, man, I don't know what to do. So I remember reading all this material. Judge Dale, retired appellate judge Dale I believe in Utah. And he said, whenever you get served with something, just take a red marks a lot and write real big print in letters: I do not accept this contract. I do not consent to these proceedings. Sign your name, date it, UCC it was then 207, 1-207, then 308, and send it to all the parties involved. Well, I was like, man, I'm going to lose anyway. Let me test the method, see if it works. And I sent it to all the parties. Roughly 45 days later, I got a reset form. Did the same thing. Red marks a lot, send it off. About 45 days later, I get another reset form. Same thing. So I repeated this cycle until it just disappeared. It went away. Never heard another thing. Never had any debt. Never had to pay any pocket out a penny to the state for child support. Absolutely. That worked. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me how. I can't find the case. It just evaporated.
But now, you did something. That was the difference.
Yeah, well, I appeared, but I told them, I'm not playing your games, and it worked. Now, would I suggest you do that with your house at risk? No. But if you're up against a wall, which I was literally up against 3 walls and some steel bars, had no place to go, okay. So I at the time, I'm throwing anything and everything at these folks. Anything and everything. I was just so pissed off, angry, frustrated, fucked over, lied to, restrained. I mean, it was just pathetic what they did to me for the 14 years and 12 years that I litigated. How disingenuous they were with their own selves, with the courts, with the law, with Supreme Court precedent, the constitutions, our own rights, and it's their ball game. It's their deal. So you have to get in there, just like CO says. You have to beat them at their own game, in their own sandbox, with their own toys. Don't bring your own toys into their sandbox and think that they're going to play with your toys, because they like their toys. They don't want your toys. And when you throw that sovereign citizenship paperwork in there, they're going to kick sand in your face. And then what are they going to do? They're going to beat you up because you can't see.
I agree with that 110%.
I've seen it over and over and over. So, all right. What else financial vehicles do you pretty much address aside from mortgages? I know you do car loans and credit cards, right?
Yeah, we do. We track all of that. We do SBA loans. We track. So we do the other loans. The banker puts out those affidavits because those are usually private deals. So I work with the banker. I've been working with them for the last 15 years. I am his gatekeeper.
Okay.
So the reason we know where the bodies are buried is I've worked with one of the gentlemen that used to bury the bodies.
The Undertaker.
Right. So he's a third generation banker. I mean, his father was a banker, his grandfather was a banker, and their family owned 3 banks. So when the family got into the banking business, he didn't want to get out. So he went to work for a few banks. And the last bank he went to work for was a bank called IndyMac, sister company of Countrywide Home Loans.
Called what?
IndyMac.
Oh, IndyMac. I thought you said Disneyland. Let's go Disneyland.
He was a securitization analyst, and he worked there for 13 years. And I asked, so why'd you ever leave? He said, Joe, I'd still be there today if they let me. My last day was on a Friday. Everything was hunky-dory. He said, when we came back on Monday, there were chains on the bank door. That was my last day of work. The difference is he's never given up his banking licenses.
Wow.
So you're talking licenses that go back to the 80s.
That's crazy.
So when I say we track down debt, I don't care if you got a World Savings Bank from 03, you got a 1998 Ford loan, it does not matter. As long as we have the documentation, we can track the debt. If we don't track it, you get your money back. So that's a.
Yeah, this is Joe's website. Let me get our happy ass out the way. There you go.
Yeah.
Mortgage compliant investigations.
Yep.
Would be mortgage-compliance.com.
Well, I'm working on it. I've got mortgage-compliance. I got mortgage-compliance-investigations.com. I'm in the middle of working on it, putting it together because I got hacked, so I just haven't had the wherewithal to put everything together. Now, if you want to see a cool video, scroll onto that animated video and hit play. It's only a 2-minute video. It'll knock your socks up when you go onto it. Right there.
Are you facing foreclosure? Are you afraid of losing your home? What if I told you that many times the parties that are foreclosing on you don't even have the right? What if I told you that many times they don't even own the loan? 83% of mortgages surveyed contain legal violations and errors that can be problematic for the parties attempting to foreclose. This sometimes results in borrowers having legal grounds to sue for financial compensation. In today's economic uncertainty, this is an unfortunate reality for far too many Americans. With our resources, we are able to locate who owns your loan, and in many cases, we are able to obtain the loan level data for your loan when it is available. Why is this important? These parties may just have a color of title claim to your property. It is called color of title because it may look like a real claim, but it only has a color of a real claim and might not be a real claim. This claim of color of title is done through an assignment of your security instrument, which could be either a mortgage, a deed of trust, or a security deed. Picture your mortgage loan as a car. The engine is the money owed or debt. The transmission is the security instrument of the loan. Now, unbeknown to you, the parties who you are paying have sold off your debt of the loan to a third party without transferring the note. The assignment of the mortgage or deed of trust is like trying to install a transmission in your car without an engine to properly attach the transmission to it. A car can't work without an engine, so how can a loan continue to work without the debt? Find out if your loan was sold and who actually has paid value for it, and if your mortgage documents contain errors, legal violations, or fraud, so you can possibly negotiate a favorable settlement or possibly sue for financial compensation. Clear and marketable title to your property, or both. Call me at 844-7-LOCATE or email me at info@mortgagecomplianceinvestigations.com for more information.
Yeah, that little video explains a lot of it. And it breaks it down into just a quick couple of minutes. So that's why I like that video.
That is a good video.
Complicated and makes it look funny and easy to understand.
Get back over here to your website. And hit contact. Here you can leave your information to Joe. You have your phone number on here.
Yep, there's my numbers. I got tons of numbers. And they can even call my personal number, and I'll answer that as well.
And he will, usually within 3 rings. That's one thing I can say about you. You've always answered the phone every time I've called.
Yeah, that's why I got over 3,000 contacts in my phone.
Yep.
I mean, I make it a point, if there's an issue, call me.
Absolutely.
Phone calls don't cost anything other than, it's the first start of a conversation, which I tell everybody.
A little time and energy.
Yep.
And if you call Joe, have everything together. Don't just call him and be all over the place and try to, throw this from left field, this from third base, this from the pitcher's mound, and expect him to, understand what you're talking about. So get everything in order as best you can, is what you think is in order. And then
I work with paralegals all over the United States. I've got some paralegals. I've got a couple of attorneys. I usually don't like working with attorneys, to be honest with you, because, if they're an attorney, they work for the bar. What is the bar? BAR, British Accredited Registry. That's it. It's the crown.
Yep.
And, lawyers work on behalf of minors. Okay? Minors being, those are individuals under the age of 18, and minors are those that have not reclaimed or revested title as their straw man.
Yep. Or mentally incompetent. When you hire an attorney, you're telling the court you're mentally incompetent.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's so funny that Trump's hired these attorneys repeatedly, and he's our president, and he's telling everybody he's legally, mentally incompetent.
But, he's got to play the role. And
yeah. But it's so, it's crazy because you know that, I know that, and nobody's making it public. It's insane.
Well, and that's because if it went public, they'd have to change the rules again. I truly believe that, again, most people don't understand what Erie versus Thompson. They don't understand the Maternity Act of 1920 and how that goes to the birth certificate, which goes to your Social Security. These are real things that are happening. They just don't speak about them.
Yep. Towner-Shepard Maternity Act of 1921. Absolutely.
Exactly. This is where all of the fruits of your labor, come from. That's where they're going, and, the only difference for me is I now have the case law that supports all of that. 10 years ago, I didn't have case law. I didn't have any of that. Since then, I do. I've been educated. I have case law. I can support that. I've read Erie versus Thompson. I've read the Maternity Act. And your eyes just open up, and it's like, wow, I can see. So now the question is, everything that we do, who are we contracting with? What contracts do I have out there? What contracts am I obligated for? So you're right. Well, when you say, what Trump's doing all of this, he's supposed to be setting the bar, but is he really?
Yep.
It's interesting that you notice that.
Oh.
It is.
Well, what just made it so blatantly, patently obvious was when he was indicted in Fulton County, and his counsel, Sidney Powell, well, I believe she was the second person of all the co-defendants that pled out on a plea bargain. She got an attorney and then she pled out like on one of the first ones. I'm like, really? That was his best attorney? You know how he blows everybody up. Oh, I've got the best. Nobody's seen the finest and all the, all
You show up as special appearance. Now wait for your rights.
Yeah. And I was like, ooh, man, the public just has no idea the just insanity of all this.
And so you're right. And to that extent, you can't teach the entire public.
No.
It's like, it's the Matrix, but it really is. But you need to have an understanding of it. They let the sheeple do what they're going to do, right? As long as I can still operate and do what I need to do to get through life.
Exactly. Focus on yourself.
Right. Everything that I do, runs through an LLC or a trust. There is nothing with my name on it. All my businesses are owned by LLCs. All my LLCs are owned by trusts, and then that trust is owned by another trust. Because the idea, like you said, Floyd, is just to get out from underneath it.
Yep.
Get out from underneath it.
Yep. Make yourself untraceable to where they start going down all these paths and they keep hitting dead end after dead end after dead end after dead end.
Yeah.
And you're just sitting pretty going, ha ha.
But, getting back to what you were saying, it doesn't matter what the debt is. Because, a few years ago, we were just getting started to looking at this credit card debt. And understand, we don't use Bloomberg. We go to the source. So wherever that debt is, we go to that portal where it is. Because I've had people say, well, Joe, I only want a Bloomberg report. But they don't have no idea what Bloomberg is. Bloomberg is the gold standard for the financial, system here in the United States of America. But they only deal, the information that they have is information that you can go to the Security Exchange Commission and go look up. Right? You're not going to find anything private on there because all the private deals are private. And that's what most people don't understand. Oh, the agency deal, that's all private. So, when you had people like, who's the auditor for CFLA? Michael Kerrigan, who said, I've done 10,000 audits this, in a year or 2 years. No, he didn't do 10,000 audits. He had people in CFLA doing the audits and he was just signing his name on the affidavit. That's what happened. Because Michael Kerrigan was at my seminar back in 2012, and I've done 6 of his properties. So if the guy was truly as good as he is, why did he come to my seminar?
Right.
Why did Storm Bradford, it's not his real name. His real name is Norman Bradford. He lives in Virginia. I've got his house papers. These guys that claim to be these big gurus, right? Joe Esquivel has their house documents. How the hell would I get Storm Bradford's note unless he sent it to me? His signed note. Okay? I've got 6 of Michael Kerrigan's properties. How else would I get his? And yet these are gurus that everybody looks to. I'm just a PI. I can read, I can write.
Just another joke.
I'm just another Joe. But I've enjoyed being on here today. I really have, Floyd.
Good. I've got two more topics for you real quick.
Sure.
I can't believe nobody's even asked the question yet. CUSIP numbers, how
Okay.
they apply to mortgages, financial transactions, financial agreements. Does it even matter? Is that a rabbit hole that we shouldn't be even looking in?
All right. Well, CUSIPs are unique identifiers pertaining to financial transactions. So when we look up a mortgage loan, if it's with a GSE, Ginnie Mae, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Sallie Mae, Farmer Mac, usually we get CUSIPs with those. And those CUSIPs pertain to the group that the payment stream is located within. Okay? So it doesn't go to just one transaction, right? It's going to a group of transactions. So for example, if you look at a Fannie Mae prospectus or an offering circular supplement, right? It'll have the groups on one side. It'll say group one, and then it'll have like 3 or 4 tranches, and then on the side it'll have a CUSIP number. Okay, and those CUSIPs pertain to that tranche that go to those financial transactions. Now, there's also CUSIP numbers for, again, auto loans, but many, with those deals being private, we don't always see CUSIPs for cars or for credit cards. Usually the CUSIPs that we get are for GSE loans, for mortgage loans. But they do create CUSIP for almost any financial transaction. For example, as you know, the CRIS reports that everyone talks about. Those are real people, those are correct, but I do not investigate those CUSIPs. There's other people that do, and there is remedy out there. Okay, but I'm not, that's just another rabbit hole, and I just stay away from that.
Okay. We're not even going to go into why, because I'm sure that's a whole nother thing. So, what about criminal cases or court cases, period?
Right. Well, that's the CRIS report I was talking about.
Same thing. Okay.
Yeah. Again, one, you need to be a properly secured party creditor and holder in due course if you're even going to even jump down this. So that means you need to be SPC HDC and have an understanding. You need to have your legacy account, okay, open, and you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't even go down that rabbit hole.
Good advice. Good advice. So, what do you suggest for people that, you know, they're still chasing the CUSIP things, and there's people out there selling these CUSIPs?
And that's fine. That's like Ken Doss on his tangent about patents. All right. There's a gentleman out there on the internet that's talking about patents. PANTENTS. Patents.
Okay.
Patents. All right. It's like it's a topic, but it's not a topic that I see that is going to get you remedy unless you are in this realm and you live and breathe this 24/7. For example, when you hear people like, for example, doing a Title 42, all right, that was something that Jerry King would do, all right, and you know, Jerry King was a beast. I mean, Jerry King. So when I started out and I looked at stuff from Doug Riddle, Winston Strout, and again, Jerry King, and I went to one of Jerry King's events, the man was a legend. When you talk about maritime law, when you talk about courts of equity, okay, if you don't have an understanding of the big burn, okay, it's not going to do you any good to go in there and argue equity in a maritime court if you're not living and breathing this every single day, all right? Because the courts are going to eat you up alive, all right? Because you're going to sound off, you know, well, I'm not crossing the bar, Your Honor, and, you know, and there's fringes on the flag and, you know, all of this information that the judges just don't want to hear, irregardless if it's correct or not, you know? But that's a whole nother rabbit hole.
Absolutely.
A whole nother rabbit hole.
Yeah. It's called court decorum, and it's the judge's court, and
it is. And if you piss them off, understand. I mean, you could end up behind bars. If you're not careful with what you say and what you do. And for me, it's like anybody going down that hole, dot your I's, cross your T's twice. Make sure when you open your mouth that you know what's coming out. Because if you start talking about being sovereign or being made whole or, anything that is outside of your realm of where you are a specialist, all right, then don't say anything that you cannot support, right? When you're in court, if you make a statement, be ready to be challenged on that statement, right? When I open my mouth in court, I know whatever I say, someone's going to say bullshit, prove it. Or, where is the evidence to support that? Where did you read that? What case did you get that from? And so I tell everyone, make sure that no matter what you say, that you can support what you say, that you can back it up. Because that is a big thing I found out in court, is that you're going to be in the spotlight real quick. So you're going to go from being this, hiding in the shadows to suddenly the light is going to come on you and the judge is going to be pointing his finger at you, say, Joe, I want to hear from you now. What have you got to say about this? And it happens that fast. Yep. And I know when I started out, it scared the hell out of me. When I was in front of Judge Bruce Markell and we went back into court because they had filed a NOD after I discharged my debt in bankruptcy. All right, so I had this whole script planned in my head. And so the judge went to the attorney, asked the attorney, Mr. Weil, what are we doing in court today? And the judge says, I don't know, Your Honor. Mr. Esquivel's debt has been paid in full. And then the judge looks at me and says, Mr. Esquivel, what are we doing in court today? And understand that all the wind was taken out of my sail because I was expecting the attorney to argue and dispute everything that I had said. And all he says, oh, no, Mr. Esquivel's debt is discharged. I don't know why we're here. Mr. Esquivel, why are we here? And it took me about 3 to 4 minutes to gain my composure, because it's like having your leg kicked out from underneath you. And anybody that's been in court knows this. You have to be prepared for the unexpected. When they just slide, this evidence in there that this piece of paper from 10 years ago. Oh, yeah, you're right. I did sign this. Yeah, that's right. I don't know where the hell that came from.
Don't remember.
So it happens, people, and they will throw you off your game. So if you can get somebody to help you with like a mock court or something, do it. Because the more you have people challenge you, the stronger it'll make you. It's it sounds crazy, but it's like going into a fight. Okay. You get prepared for battle. And how do you get prepared for battle? You take on these little fights to get ready for the big fight. So how do I get ready for an investigation? I look up the case law. I look up, what did this party say? What did that party say? Right? Because when I go in there, I got to take a kick to the nuts. And I know that. That's my job. I got to protect the homeowner. That's my job. Give him the information. So anything I can give him to throw them off their game, that'll be to my advantage. So that's my job. Right. And people don't always understand.
I'm going to put all that in a little nutshell for everybody. Whenever you encounter, or you're in court, okay, or you're encountering a governmental employee, you ask them a question, you better know the answer to the question before you ask the question. Otherwise, they're going to put you on the spot, and then they're going to go, oh, this person doesn't know jack shit. I'm just going to do whatever I want with them. And they're going to handle you.
You're right.
Yeah, I know I'm right.
Yeah,
So make sure you know the answer to the question before you ask it. That way, if they don't answer it correctly, you already know they didn't answer it correctly. There's no speculation, no guesswork, no I have to go back and find out. You already know. So that's the number one rule when you get into court. Know the answer before you ask the question. Otherwise,
I agree with you 110% on that.
Yeah, you're going to get steamrolled. So, yeah, and this is what I tell everybody. And Joe, I'm sure you will go right along with this as well. The more you go into court, the more ability you're going to have. And there's people out there just because they can read law that thousands of people are following. And all you have to do, just like Joe said, I go read what they said. I go read what he said. He went back and read the record. And that's all you have to do is if you want to find out if these people like really got the cojones or the brain work or the track record to show you, okay, without you getting the, their narrative, their story, their history, you go look it up yourself. And that's how you vet these folks. And most people aren't doing it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, understand. I mean, before I got into this, I mean, I can't tell you how much time I spent down at the law library, which is a great place. I mean, go look up the, books on jurisprudence. I mean, it's amazing what you can find in the law library. It truly is, people. Go spend a couple of days there. Knock your socks off. It will truly knock your socks off.
Corpus Juris Secundums. Go read, open up and read that series. And those are hard to find in law libraries because they're so expensive. Most of them don't even have it. You have to go to a really good one. They used to have them in Texas prisons, and then they quit buying them because they were so expensive. Now, everything's on a tablet. There are no more books.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
When I was there, when I left, stopped litigating in 2012, and I occasionally went there until 2016 just to kind of wrap up all my legal work because I knew they were not going to let me win. Lost my train of thought.
You said books converted to digital.
Yeah, they were already not reordering the pocket parts for the books.
Oh my goodness!
And if you wanted a case, you had to fill out this little piece of paper. You could put 3 cases on there, or 3 books, or 3 citations, or like if I wanted Texas Code of Criminal Procedure Article 22.22, I could request that. If I wanted, Hale versus Hinkle, Booker versus U.S. I could only get those 3. So they would actually print out the Westlaw online case, staple all the paperwork together, put it in a manila folder, and then when you came back the next day or the next law library visit, they would hand you those 3 cases. You get to look through those 3 cases, and that was it. If you wanted to look at some more, you had to put in another request for 3 more, come back the next day.
These are the last 3 books that I have purchased.
Donative transfers and trust. Oh, okay. That's an interesting book. How much did that book cost?
Quite a bit.
Back that one up and pull that one away a little bit. Okay. Trusts, Builder Law Summaries. Ooh, that's a sweet book there. The American Law Institute Restatement of the Law Trust. Okay. Wow, you have a lot of information on trusts.
Well, I'm still learning. I don't know what I don't know, but what I do know is, over the years, that company with those 3 letters we love to hate have garnished my bank accounts multiple times because they say that I owe, so I must go. But the accounts that they take were only the accounts in my personal name.
That's the debtor.
Exactly. Okay, so now I have to keep an account open with my social security number that's attached to my name, but all the money that comes in does not go into that. And there is no money that goes in there. Okay, all the money that goes in comes in through an LLC, which goes then into a trust, which then goes into another trust. So all my LLCs, there is nothing that says Joe Esquivel. Joe Esquivel doesn't make a penny.
And you have a bank account that just pretty much lays dormant and actually goes into the red every year because you're having to pay that service fee.
Right. So we don't, I mean, I'm still learning and more learning about trust because, when you contract, are you contracting with me as an individual, or are you contracting with me as a trustee for my trust? So when you sign your name, how you sign your name depends on how you're contracting. Are you signing Joe Esquivel TT? Or am I signing Joe Esquivel as debtor?
Right. Just
or
Joe
or am I signing Joe Esquivel Jr.?
What's the most valuable asset one owns, Joe?
The most valuable asset you own. Your own title.
Your signature.
Well, you're right. You're right. Because it's yours. It's nobody else's.
It creates anything. Creates debt, creates credit.
That is, you're right. I mean, I couldn't have, you're right. That is the most powerful asset that anyone could own.
Their signature. Absolutely.
But I am still learning. I mean, I read these books and I still draw blank. All right, I gotta go back and read it again. What didn't I get? What didn't I understand? And but I have to do it. I mean, because my mind just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. You know, so I still have all these questions. It's like tonight. It's already 9 o'clock. I didn't realize how late it was. I still have got a few things I still got to get done tonight that I haven't even started. So,
okay.
But it's interesting because there's so many things out there that we don't know. But as individuals, the way I look at it is I'm constantly I've got that need to acquire more information. Because then that's information I can share with other individuals. That don't have that information because they may not have the access that I have. So for me, it's like a circle, the circle. And one leads to another, one leads to another, one leads to another, and then you start over again.
Right.
And that's how I just look at life. It's just a journey,
It is.
And God says if you're going to be of service, you be of service to others.
Absolutely.
And so, the last 15 years, this is what I've done, try to do the right thing every single day, try to give everyone the best information, and even go out of the way sometimes. But that's what we do. I investigate loans. We track down debt and we provide evidence of what we found. And then, the homeowner is able to use it to the best of their ability. And that's what it is in a nutshell.
Jatilde over here put in something, and that brought up another question for me because I know a bunch of people who have credits. They've received credits. Now they don't know what the hell to do with their credits. And they've got a bunch of them.
Oh, they probably have like hundreds of thousands of credits.
If not millions, yes. And they don't have no clue what to do with them, how to expend them, where to send them, how to redeem them. What information do you have on that, if any?
I'm just learning on that, but I mean, I know that if someone, because there's so many individuals that owe taxes, right? And there's other individuals with credits, and they could sell those credits for value, whatever the value is to be determined. to that individual that needs them. I know there's mechanisms out there that do it. I just started hearing about it, I don't know, a year ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, about, getting these tax credits and then using those tax credits, for like future earnings or selling those tax credits. But it's interesting that you brought it up because it's something I've just started hearing about a year ago. And I would like to get more information on that as well.
Okay. Yeah. I don't have time to do all these processes anymore like I used to. I when people send me stuff, I pass it on to somebody else. Here, will you go vet this for me? If you have time, and they'll do it and come back and tell me. For the most part, there's some one-offs, hit and misses, people sliding through the cracks, but I don't see anything consistently working unless you're going back into court and beating them with their own law.
That's what it is. Understand, you have to go to the court. Even though I've done what I've done to the IRS, I ended up going through the courts. I've discharged my debt using bonds, okay, and I've got evidence of the discharge. I've got my new passport. I've got letters from the IRS saying, but it's not for the faint of heart. Okay, it's not. I mean, I'm talking, years in court fighting, and if you saw, having stacks like this of filings, and imagine having 9 or 10 stacks of papers. I went out and bought a special printer, an Epson tank printer, because in a year and a half, I printed out like 36,000 documents, to give you an idea. 36,000 pages of documents. I was going to court and I would take a box of filings. All right, because you have to serve all the parties. And, when you're serving, and one filing is over 500 pages with exhibits, okay, and you got, half a dozen people to serve. It adds up. Yeah.
Quick.
And, when you would look at my table and you see an entire table of just stacks of paper, and people don't realize, I spend days putting these packages together to get them out. It is a lot of darn work.
I've been there.
And
I was getting free mail. I don't know if you watched my video I did on the USPS Postal Inspector investigation.
You got free mail? Oh.
I did. I took somebody else's process and tweaked it, and it worked flawlessly. I would say out of probably every 100 I dropped in the box, it didn't matter what it was, media mail, priority mail express, same day delivery. I might get 1 or 2 kickbacks, and if I did and it was already processed and kicked back, I just put it in new envelope, new label, drop back in a box, and it would get there. And I was dropping hundreds of dollars at a time. My whole first floor would just be littered with priority express mail envelopes, and just laying document after document on top, just going.
I've got that. I've got my office because when I send out my affidavit, everything goes up priority mail. So when I go to the post office, I'm going, dropping 10 affidavits in the mail at a time. So you're right. It's a ton of work. It's a lot of work, and that's when you've got your stamps and your labels, and I've got a process down where it gets like an assembly line is what you learn to do. But it's a lot of darn work. When people do this, you need to be prepared. You're going to spend not just time, okay, but it's going to take a toll physically on you. It does, or it has for me. I don't know, maybe because I'm getting older. I don't know, but I really enjoyed this today, Floyd. I really have. Thank you for allowing me on your show. Thanks,
You're coming
everybody.
back.
Oh yeah.
You're back. Oh yeah.
All right. Well, listen, buddy. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to go use the little boy's room.
I don't, but I give everybody the last few minutes to give a closing to the audience, and the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, right now, what we're going to do is I'm going to be sending a bunch of, not a bunch, but I'll be sending some things that I put together. I'll be sending some documents to Floyd, and Floyd can share them with everyone. Everyone is free to use them. I'm going to be putting out what's called a bearer instrument, because many times people tell me that they understand what bearer documents are. So I've taken the time to go through the UCC and pull up what is a bearer instrument. And I then put together a PDF as to what is a bearer instrument, what is an order instrument, so everybody can actually view this. And I think it'll be quite helpful for educating, anyone that has any questions. If you need anything, investigation on any debt, I'm more than welcome to talk to you about it. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer anything.
And how do people find you?
They can call me direct at area code 512-769-3721. And that is my personal cell.
And give us one of your websites.
They can go to mortgagecomplianceinvestigations.com.
There you go. And if you call him, he'll answer the phone. If you email him, he'll probably answer the same day. Yep. Joe, thank you very much for being here. A fellow Texan in Maynard, Texas, folks. That's Central Texas by Austin. So thank you, Joe. You have a great week, and we'll get you back in the show.
You have a blessed day. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
There you go, Joe Esquivel. So, whenever I have a little investigation and it needs a little bit more tenacity, I make a phone call. And Joe's been my go-to man for quite some time now, and I'm very humbled and gracious and thankful to be able to have that type of connection. Now, you only can deal with people like that if you're on the up and up, okay? Because that's the only people I want to deal with. I don't want to deal with any scammers, liars, fraudsters, anything like that. I don't want no association with those folks. There's too many of them out there. People need to hear the truth, whether they like it or not. And that's, it is what it is. I've got to go find the truth. Hey, do I wish I had invested in more silver back when it was $18, $20 an ounce? Oh, hell yeah. Do I have regrets? Oh, hell yeah. But you know what? I bit the bullet and went and invested in some more a little bit later, but it is what it is. So it's never too late. You've got a lot of good wisdom in this video, and I'm really appreciative of Joe sharing his knowledge, me being able to share my knowledge with him and, open his eyes up to some things that he didn't even know about. If you found value in this video, like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell, leave a comment below. Tell me what you think. If you use Joe for anything, leave a comment below. Tell everybody else about Joe and the services that you receive from him, good, bad, and different. Hey, I do not delete comments. If your comments ever gets deleted from YouTube, it's because YouTube did it, not because I did it. Even when people talk shit about me on my own stuff, I'll leave it. Is what it is. I'll have more guests on. There's something else I wanted to talk to you guys about. I may come back and do another video. It's 9:21. If I do, it will be on modern banking, commercial paper in 5 parts. We'll be talking about warehouse receipts and what that looks like. Because if a warehouse receipt was drawn by the warehouseman and it wasn't an independent third party, and it was the same party that is profiting from the warehouse receipt that actually issued the warehouse receipt, well, that's a no-no. So if you're not familiar with what a judgment and sentence is, that would be a warehouse receipt. So if you've been sentenced to a criminal conviction, to jail, prison, probation, or parole, you may be able to issue a bill of exchange against that warehouse receipt. That's what the law says. So we're going to go take a deep dive into that. I don't know when I'm going to get this video available. I'm going to try to get it to you tonight. I don't know. We'll see. I was up late last night dealing with somebody and their issues, and that's why I said, please, when you call me, make sure you have your shit together before you call me and you've read everything and you understand everything. And if you don't, have that highlighted before you start sending me stuff or trying to explain something to me. Because most of you don't even know where to start. And that's a problem, because if you send me 30 different documents and 16 different emails as attachments, you know, now I don't even know which one's which, and I don't know what's what. I don't know what to read, what's fluff, what's, you know, what's necessary. And when I have to go through, you know, read 18 pages of a document, and then I get there and I'm like, okay, what? What am I looking for here? This explains everything. So I just don't have that time, folks. I really don't. And I know you don't either, but I really do appreciate you coming over here and spending your time, your money, and your energy with me, and allowing me to gratiate your eyeballs. But again, I hope you learned something. I'll be back. I did not get a chance to hit Steven up. I'll try to hit him up now. Yeah, it's not too late, and I'll get some more guests lined up. I definitely got to get over here on this chain mail. Casey Kasem's daughter will be on the show, tell her story with a panel. There will be other ladies. I don't know if Stuart's going to join us. I'll get all that set up. So just hit that notification bell. So when I do schedule that video, you will be notified. If you're not in my Telegram room, The Fearless Floyd Show, please join it, because all the stuff that I listen to on the side while I'm working, and it's important, it's educational, it's telling you about your future before the future gets here. I post all those over in Telegram. So I don't do TikTok. I barely do Facebook. I don't do Twitter. There's only so much time in a day that I can invest in social media. I use Telegram for specific reasons. I find it more than a social media platform, but that's why I use it. So I post a lot of videos over there. There's a lot of good information in the Fearless Floyd Show. We have a sale going on, and has them over at the new website. The new website, here, let me put it in here for you guys. And this is not going to be a static web address. This is a temporary web address just to build the new website. Oh, no, that's right. So it's .ct.ws. That's right. So that's the temporary website right there. Ann has some specials going on. Get these banners off. All right, good, they're off. I know she's won $179. She has the softcover specialty and on trust books. We'll be doing a February sale. Every book that Ann has authored is now available in softcover for $99. If you're picking up the Australian Discretionary Trust or the Canadian Revocable Trust books, the physical books, shipping is $60. I don't know about what the tariffs are, import-export tariffs. So you may just want to get an ebook, print it out yourself. I don't know, I just don't know what the cost is to receive a $99 book. It may be $99 to receive a $99 book, which really doesn't make sense, because it turns a $99 book into something like that. But if you're over in Australia, you're over in Canada, and you look all that information up, just send it to me. That way I'll know what it is, for a roundabout, and we can apply it. I'm very generous. Okay. I'm definitely not making money and being rich. You know, you don't see any fucking diamonds and gold or anything on me, right? Hit me up. You know, if it's just too outrageous, we'll work out a deal for you to get this information in your hands, because I know some people just like physical books. They don't like ebooks. You know, I'm one of those persons. You know, I like a physical book. I want to put a highlighter in there. I want to write notes. I want to put Post-its all over it. I want it beat up. I want it to look like it's been read and used. So there you go. Remember, before you talk to any government official, especially like a clerk, okay, you might want to go investigate. Just, you know, go search on AI. Say, what are the duties of the Cherokee County Clerk of Georgia? Okay, and it's going to tell you. So now you know what they're legally required to do. So now when you go in and ask them a question and they give you some bullshit ass answer, you're like, oh, no. Here's what you're supposed to do. Or you know the law and you can say, oh, no. Here's what the law says, and you can whip it out or you can recite it to them. But always know the answer before you ask that question. Don't ask them a question and let them handle you, because they'll handle you. They'll realize just like that, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. And they'll move you right out of the way, right off your square. And they'll have you chasing something else that you just has nothing to do with what you're doing. So please be aware of that. All right, Joe Esquivel, thank you for being on the show. I really do appreciate that. Thank you, everybody, for being here. If I don't see you before the week is up, y'all have a great week. Tomorrow night, I doubt I will do a show. I have a concert to go to. I may do something early. Who knows? So stick around, stay tuned, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell, like, whatever. Do what you do. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you when I see you.